To Walk on Worlds by Matthew John is easily my favorite read of 2026. And that is really high praise. For my job at The Arcanist and also just being, somebody who likes to read, I read a lot of short stories, I read a lot of books every year, and it is very rare when something like this comes along. I would like to call it a modern classic. This is for a couple of reasons. Of course, it's good, it's excellent. The stories in here are all just total gas. It is Sword and Sorcery at its finest. But it's also because of the impact that this book has had on the community as a whole. The Sword and Sorcery genre has really only returned to my radar in the last couple of years, and I only started getting really deep in the new community surrounding it within the last 6 months or so. So when I was kind of trying to figure out what books I wanted to read within this new third wave of Sword and Sorcery, To Walk on Worlds was one of those that just showed up. It just kind of seemed like the natural place to start from, the outside looking in. I had no idea who the author was. I had no idea what his experiences were like in the publishing field. And I ordered this book online, and then I saw that Matthew John was on Substack. So I reached out, and we ended up having a really excellent conversation. He told me a bit about how these two books of his came to be. And I think it's a really interesting story, and that he has a lot to teach up-and-coming Sword and Sorcery writers who are banging their head against the grindstone trying to get their name out there. Before we get into the talk, I'm assuming you're a Sword and Sorcery reader. That's why you've clicked on this video. I just wanted to let you know about A Valley of Shadow by Lee Patton. This is the first book that The Arcanist published back in October. It's just now starting to find its readership with this new wave of Sword and Sorcery readers. Reviews are starting to come out. People are really enjoying it. If you want some darker, grittier Sword and Sorcery, similar to Walk on Worlds, prose styles are different between the writers, but I think if you like Matthew John, you're gonna like this book as well. Links are down in the description. Now, without further ado, I introduce you to Matthew John.
Doing this writing thing for so long and just constant doubt, but also with reason, right? Because you're learning all these things as you go and honing the craft or whatever. And then just at one point, I was like, I'm getting enough good, positive, sincere feedback that I must be doing an okay job with these. And yeah, man, it's been a blast ever since. And now I'm just busying myself constantly to keep making material.
Yeah, so that is a good lead into my first question, which is, how did the Maxus cycle start? I see some of the stories are a good few years old before they came out in the collection. Mm-hmm. Was it just something you were doing for fun that carried away into something bigger, or what happened there?
I would say when I set out to write, I knew I wanted to write fantasy and horror and that sort of thing because it's just always been, my big interests, right? But when I had only really set out to learn to write well and not be embarrassing, because I'm someone who loves to read. I love storytelling. I have big opinions about it. And, I'm a critic myself, right? So I just wanted to create prose that was good enough, not embarrassing, learn my craft as I went. But then as I was doing that, I was writing within the same setting, which is kind of unnamed. I just call the whole thing the Maxus cycle. So then certain characters had reasons to come back and do these things, and I wanted to kind of make a protagonist that was a wizard, slightly inspired by Karl Edward Wagner's Cain, the idea that you had this sort of megalomaniacal kind of, a protagonist that was hard to like, but you still manage to. And I think I like that with a lot of my broader fiction. So Maxus came up a lot, and there's little storytelling devices I baked in, like the dude can clone himself, or he can steal bodies, and there's just certain ways that make him immortal, and so he can kind of be a chain through whatever stories I want to tell in this world. I basically built the world as the stories necessitated. Some of it was just for open fiction calls, like Weird Book. Some was more specific, like a zombie version of Weird Book. I wrote something for The Magician's Skull for Howard Andrew Jones, and I was like, obviously, I got to do something very classic, pulp Sword and Sorcery. So I did that. Maxus made his way in, and I don't know. I wrote these things piecemeal with a sort of trajectory in mind. And then after I dropped the first book, and people were like, "Oh man, that was cool," and the format was cool, and this and that. When it came time to write the second book, Within the Weeping Eye, I don't know. It just I wrote a couple of stories specifically to push certain parts of that narrative forward, especially the novella in there, Black Wings, Bad Wine. And a lot of the other things just fit within because it took place in the same world with the same characters at different times in their lives. And so I would say the story is the setting and the characters, right? And there's this overhanging sense that the world's dying, and it is. But what of the lives of the people who are living within that pressure, and what beautiful things do they find, and what treachery do they get up to? I mean, that's something I feel like I could tell stories about forever. It just really lends itself to any story you want to tell. And so I would say my setting kind of spiraled out of that. Is I wanted to tell stories kind of within a genre, but stories that, are reactions to things that happen in my life, big and small. And that's the plan going forward.
Yeah, I can definitely see that interplay of wanting to play with different characters, see what different people are doing. My favorite fantasy, I can't really stick on one POV for very long. I get tired of them, writing and reading. And so one of my favorite series, it's always, I don't know, like there's like 300 different POVs throughout 10 books. Yeah. I love that. And as a consequence, it's written kind of like short fiction. Every section with a line break ends up being like a little short story, where Maxus literally is short stories, and that is working really well for the genre and the format you're going for, right? So it feels like I'm reading a novella that is connected rather than an anthology, because anthology kind of implies a bit of disconnection, where you're stopping and restarting from scratch. I mean, is there plans one day for like a more traditional novel, or are you really committed to the short fiction?
I suspect, because book 3, I'm still playing around with ideas. I have a couple of stories written, or a couple close to done. One that will appear in New Age Sword and Sorcery, their newest thing coming up. So I've got a story in there, but it will depend on when I can get book 3 released. I've got all kinds of other projects that I've contracted to do, and some upcoming ones that aren't my own. This is the first time I've ever had to be like, I need to interrupt my own writing because of gig work. It's a cool problem to have for sure. But I suspect that with book 3, it will trend a little more to, like, there'll definitely be another bigger novella in there where I want to cover some serious ground. But also any other stories that I have that link in, I will drop them into the series where I feel they fit. And I'm not even shackled by chronology in this series. I mean, that's really one of the happy accidents here, is I think my ADD really made me tell stories in a certain way and on a certain timeline. And the format that I've kind of stuck to here is, it can be a little fluid, right, in terms of all of those narrative bits. But I would love to keep it very short story focused and have each thing be as self-contained as possible, because, well, to me, that's like it's an awesome little piece that you could just constantly break off, and then you have your story. It's certainly more challenging, it's more time consuming, but it will open things up to a lot of discovery because of a story I have to write. I love a good prompt, and even just writing exercises, and some really good stuff comes out during that. So it'll be weird because I have not had a moment to sub to anything for a long time. For the last year or more, I've just been doing, the last couple of years now, I've just been doing work as requested or contracted. And so I don't know what I'll do when I finally have nothing and I can just focus on the Maxus cycle, which I will eventually.
I find that that's in the chaotic life of a writer trying to make a living. Being pulled from a million different angles
Yeah.
seems to be pretty normal. It's definitely my experience too. Longing is so powerful. Whenever I get stuck on a project, I'm just put it aside, work on something else, and then I get swept up with my day job, and then I'm just like, oh my god, I want to write the thing I care about so bad. Writer's block be gone when you miss it.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly where I am. But the beauty of this too is if I look at my entire year and say I'm going to write, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, maybe 5,000 ish short stories per year, then that's awesome because some of them can be contributing to the Maxus cycle, even if I don't have a book coming out that year or something, right? There's still things building. So I don't, and I've got all the role-playing game work that I've done on top of it, and I have a day job. So it's like, it's a miracle I managed to finish what I do, but now I'm lining things up by the month, which is helping. I can just kind of knock things off the list and then keep going.
It sounds like you have a really organized, regimented schedule going on.
Somehow, right? Like that's when I say ADD, I'm not just that's clinical. Like, so I have to, and I'm a teacher by day too, right? So there's just certain adaptations in my life that I know what I'm capable of, and I know not to bite off more than I can chew.
Yeah, and a teacher, and that's mental strain.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep it all together because my day job requires very little from my brain and gives me a good amount of leeway during the day to catch my breath, and I have my laptop with me. And, getting up early helps too. But if I didn't have a job like that, I just don't think that I could do any of the things that I do. So that's...
Again, that's all adaptation too, right? It's that I'm always thinking about it, right? I'm always thinking about storytelling. And if I haven't written for a week or a month, I'm still getting ideas and pushing things forward. The rare time is the actual sit down, crunch out the words. And I'm kind of a slow writer to begin with, right? I plod along, I get some things done and make them sound good, then I move forward. But, knowing your own processes and like what works, that's all just part of learning the craft too.
Yeah. Trusting yourself to get it done.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you are writing these stories and you have things coming together, you mentioned, maybe it goes to the Maxus cycle, maybe it goes to something else. Mm-hmm. What is your typical goal when you have a short story? Are you sending it to submission? Are you self-publishing somewhere? What is your thought process with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's changed over the years somewhat, where before it was, I just had little goals. Like one was to get a story published, even for free, whatever. Did that. Then my next goal was to write something, again, within the genres I want to do, which is dark fantasy, even grim dark, sword and sorcery, horror, whatever. My next goal was to do something for like a token pay. Like I do the story, someone cracks me off $30, $50. Again, this is really not about the money. It's about little things that crush the doubt and the imposter syndrome and I don't know, man, it's like psychology is, I need to feel like I've done a good job or something, right? How we seek our validation, it matters, but at the same time, it matters more just to write good things. So before I would say I would chase submissions, and then my next thing was I wanted to get pro rates on something to hit that other little notch or that little goal for something I've written. And then I did that a few times. And so I was chasing at that point, right? To try and, I don't know, almost prove myself, I guess, and maybe just to myself. But now it's changed because I took these stories that I had published elsewhere, I put them in my own book, added a few, and people really seemed to dig it. I'm not thinking about the submissions anymore. I can't even look because I have enough on my plate to not do it. And as much as there's some that come up where I'm like, ooh, that'd be awesome, I just don't have the time, right? It's, you gave me kudos for having it together and getting the stuff done. That's the thing. It's only what I can accomplish, and I got to watch out for temptation. So Fortunately, the gigs have been offered in such a way that they're spaced out, and I can do them. So, yeah, like I say, with New Edge Sword and Sorcery, I wrote a Maxus story for that because I had a cool one in mind, and it really does kind of take place directly after the second book. But depending when I release that second book, I don't even know if it'll be in there. Right? It might show up later.
Yeah, that could complicate things too, trying to work around magazines, licensing.
Yeah, waiting for the rights to return, right? It's a consideration. That's the other thing. That's the other reason I don't really want to sub, because if I get something out there, it's going to be locked up for a while. And I mean, I'm happy with the number of readers I've got and continue to get. So I kind of just want to get material out to keep the fire burning, as it were.
That, that's something with the Arcanist that I started thinking about. I got really frustrated with waiting for permission, things getting tied up. I have one of my favorite short stories right now in a submission. It's been 8 months. And I'm like, I want to do something with this. I don't want it to just sit here and
well, that's the thing. If you're shooting high, right, and going for larger or bigger paying markets too, then that's a whole, it's going to be locked up for a while. Mm-hmm. But I also get the want to do it and to have it featured in that place, right? It feels good to have something make it through a crucible of editors and slush readers, and I totally get it. But that's the thing; you have to almost let it go and be like, forget about it till it actually shows up someday, right?
In indie publishing, you have your own readership. You don't have those barriers anymore. You get to decide when your stuff comes out, and if you're selling to an audience, you have readers who are interested in what you're doing. I feel like that ends up being a lot more fulfilling, at least in my experience. With these 2 books that came out, were they indie published, or did you have a small press working with you? How did that work?
No, totally indie. I would say the people who helped me get this book out were, me for writing them, the editors I've worked with over the years who helped, direct things. But, I bought some covers from an artist called Mike Hoffman, very much in the Frazetta mold. I think I'm really mentioning those because I do think that they're a thing that opens the door for the kind of people or the readers I'm wanting to reach. So I think even just making sure I had the right art for those covers was big. Oliver Brackenberry did the layouts to give it that sort of old Ace paperback look, for that nostalgic look. I had Logan, my buddy Logan L.D. Whitney, author, help me with some formatting quirks and help me get that book out and overcome some technical crap and read my stuff and support it. And so, I absolutely self-published it, but it was just a friends helped, in a big way. But as you say about being able to control it, even down to the release date, how much I charge, the size of the book, the stories I wish to put in there. Editors are super important part of the process, but there's also the opportunity when you're self-publishing. It's exactly what I wanted it to be, right? I didn't have to make any compromises, and I would be happy to do so if I thought there was a piece of crap in there. I'd want someone to tell me to remove it. But it's kind of just, I can do it on my own. I don't provide a release date for the next book. I will put it out when it's done. It won't be more than 2 years from the last one is my sacred thing I'm going to hew to. But these are smaller paperbacks, right? You can devour them pretty quick. And, even if as a reader, that's attractive to me because the TBR pile is just huge. And if I can just put some little slivers on there to knock out, that's nice.
Yeah. And as the reader, speaking from my recent experience, it's been really nice just to, I sit down, I look how many pages the next story is. I'm like, okay, I can sit down for an hour this morning and absorb that. And I had a moment. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Well, I was just going to say it really fits the sort of attention span, modern attention span sensibilities, even. Not that everyone's plagued by that, but I don't know. There's something episodic about it, which is good. And Howard Andrew Jones would have said the same thing about Hanubar when he put those out. So,
Yeah, definitely. And that's a huge reason why I'm so invested in the short fiction, specifically the revival of pulp in the last few years, because it's meeting people where they're at and not like trying to,
Yeah.
I love big fantasy books, but I only have time in my life for one giant series. I'm not going to pick up another one that I haven't read yet. And books like this, I consider myself a rather thoughtful academic person, but even thoughtful academic people who read all the time are starved for time, they're starved for attention.
Yeah.
And I can sit down with To Walk on Worlds and I know that I'm going to get a complete experience out of it. I'm not feeling like I'm just trudging through something. And I was sitting on Sunday morning. I read which story was it? It was, I believe it. Oh yeah, it was A Simple Errand. The second one I had read the very first one the night before, and then I finished that one and I looked at the circle and I'm like, I'll just read another one. I wasn't planning on it. Just one
I think
more
that's
episode.
only like 4,000 words or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I like that angle. And it's not even so much that I would be opposed to a large fantasy series. What I'm kind of opposed to signing up for something that is a trilogy or is 7 books, and it's like you have to finish it, right? I don't even mean just the writer. I'm not talking about George Martin or Patrick Rothfuss, like whatever. It's a whole other conversation of finishing and not finishing series. I think I just mean I like the idea of something serialized. Like I would rather have one short book from my favorite writer every year than waiting 4 or 5 years for a doorstopper that I may or may not read. And I think, there's something like the people who are devouring romance books or romantasy or any of the big things that are huge as ebooks to these ravenous readers. I think that they don't care if the series is destined to be 3 or 7 books or whatever. They're just reading this stuff as it comes out. And I mean, with the Maxus cycle, I could do that continually, right? Like the old days, right? Just drop a new Elric book.
Competent indie authors that are at that same quality of what you would expect from trad publishing. It's they're not going to just like vanish off the face of the planet because they have to do so much more to stay relevant. You hear from them, they're sending emails, they're probably on a social somewhere.
Well, and they weren't tourists, right? They weren't people who just wanted to see if they had a book in them or dabble. Like if you're really good, if you've taken the time to learn some craft, then you're probably going to stick around. It's like a martial artist or something is not going to stop training. Because I don't know why, who I am all of a sudden. Yes, my writing is like martial combat.
And that's a big thing too with when you're writing books. The term I hear thrown around a lot is the writing life, especially in like the MFA circles. Those writing programs, Clarion Workshop, those academic merit-based programs, they want to know that you're not just talking the talk. You are getting up every day and you have narrative on your mind, you're typing words. Anybody could, especially nowadays, anybody could write a single book, write a story, and then be done with it. But that doesn't create a lasting cultural influence. And that's a good segue into a point I wanted to make. It seems like, from the outside perspective looking in, that the Maxus cycle has contributed to the culture as a whole pretty significantly already.
Wow.
Do you feel that way? Do you see that as the author?
Oh man, I would only say, I would say recently I have felt like there's been more people popping up online or DMing me or offering me work who have read my work and who enjoy it, right? I've done a lot of begging here and there to get reviews, but I'm just about to hit 100 reviews on Amazon, which I think is great. And I mean, that's a good chunky amount of people giving feedback. And I see it, it pops up in Sword and Sorcery haunts for sure. So I don't know. I don't think I've made an impact, but I'm definitely somebody who's in the community, and within the community, people know who I am, and you know, I've got a lot of peers whose work I appreciate, and I have the other sort of angle where I do the game design work, which people who play RPGs aren't always the same people who read or read fantasy, but there's definitely crossover. The fact that I work on so many Conan projects, you know, I'm writing things that are Conan coded, even, well, maybe not coded, but adjacent for sure. Some of it, very sword and sorcery. So I've had a lot of time and stuff in particular projects. My name's popped up in, you know, Conan comics and role playing books and, you know, Rogues in the House podcast. So I deliberately put myself out there on purpose, and I try to keep networking and getting my name around, because that's an important part of stuff, right? And so, yeah, I would say at this point, definitely I'm more visible than I used to be. And I'm sure some people think I'm an asshole, and some people, you know what I mean? Like you can just tell when your own self-promotion is rubbing people away, and I get it, but because, you know, I've seen that too, I've felt it too, but it's also like, you got to do it, or you're not going to reach as many people as you want. Maybe you don't give a shit and you don't want to reach that many people. That's fine too.
I hate sending emails. Like, I only do a monthly newsletter because I hate getting emails. Like, people who spam, I am going to unsubscribe. But I've had to wrap my head around the fact that I am not the target market. I am weird compared to other people. I'm protective over my security and data, and I don't want people telling me what to like or buy. So I'm just not who I should be thinking about when I'm thinking about reaching readers.
That is smart though, right? Is the knowing that you got to do things sometimes against your own grain.
Yes, absolutely.
Like from a business side, right? Or a get it done side, not from a creative side.
I mean, you owe it to yourself as somebody who spent all these hundreds of hours toiling away on this project. I won't go so far as to be like, oh, like it's our duty to share our life-changing message, but it is important from a creative standpoint to put your work out there. You know, just to file it away onto the hard drive so nobody who might enjoy it will ever see it. It doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't serve the author.
Yeah, art is social, man. There's the social, and it's transactional is definitely not the word, but there is a bit of symbiosis going on where what you're writing, someone else is picking that up and they're putting their own stuff in there. I think I read a Stephen King essay before where he's talking about horror fiction is like a basket of horrors, in that the writer comes by and he's got his basket of these horrors, and you as the reader pick one out that you kind of latch onto, but you're also putting one of yours in to the story. So these sort of the horrific elements, whatever it is, tend to meld. And I mean, actually, just back to the sort of, you know, being satisfied with your work or being noticed for your work, is some of the messages or comments that I've liked the most are where people see a little bit of, I don't like allegory because people turn their nose up at it, but there's definitely things I'm writing about that have been big in my life that I'm kind of filtering through particular lens a lot of the time, honestly, without even noticing it. Like, just like, oh shit, I was clearly working through this at that time. But that is something I would not give up at all, because then you know that a thing you created clicked with somebody else and their experience, and maybe not the exact same one. But I mean, that to me feels like it's worth the selling oneself all over the place and agreeing to interviews and articles and projects, and because, you know, you want to be able to reach people, and I feel like it's disingenuous for someone to say they don't care who reads their work. Again, there's definitely some people who really don't care, but I think the very process of creation is inviting others to look, right?
Yeah. I mean, why do we have these giant beautiful buildings and structures scattered throughout the world. You know, those weren't put there so people could not see them, not enjoy them.
And not merely for structural purposes.
I guess there is a, I forgot what the movement was called, but it was very big in Soviet Russia, where it's just ugly buildings that can
Like
withstand
brutalism
wars.
or something.
Yeah, brutalism. That's
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
I find that sort of aesthetic, though, the ugly functional thing, to be kind of weirdly attractive in its own way too. But
In a sci-fi dystopian sort of, maybe not even dystopian, but just yeah, I know what you're getting at. It's grim and it might cut you.
Yeah.
When you're looking at it.
Yeah, like I had a period where I was without a car for a while, and then I, learned what it was like to take public transit everywhere, and never had to do that before. And I had an opportunity, and I fell into like a really cheap truck. It didn't run. I needed to put an alternator in it and a new battery, and I got it working, and it is just crunched, like, because I got into an accident. It is rusting everywhere, but it runs, and it is the most gorgeous thing I have ever seen.
Yeah, exactly. That's my philosophy with cars: is it needs to get to point A to point B without costing me more than a brand new car payment would.
Yeah.
I bought a Corolla, you see.
Very sensible. So tell me a bit about your TTRPG work. What have you done? What are you working on now, or in your future?
I started with doing some work for the Dipius Robert E. Howard's Conan, which I just did kind of like fluff writing on a bunch of the tie-in books, which is where I kind of got my foot in the door. And then I started working for Monolith on the board game. And most of what I had done for a while was board games. But then I started just taking little lateral trips over to RPG land. I did a lot of fluff work for the Nightfall Terminator role-playing game from a couple of years back. Loved that. Man, that was a fun sandbox to play in. And then after that, I started designing the Conan the Hyborian Age, is what we called it, for Monolith, because they got the Conan license and they let me pitch it. My version of what I kind of wanted, because I had some very very specific ideas on the sort of Conan pulp Sword and Sorcery game I've kind of always wanted to do. And so I eventually plugged all that into there, and we got a working demo engine. We all liked it. So I plowed forward and went through a crazy process of developing a whole game system with the help of many others as well. I just finished some Hellboy stuff for Mantic and Nightfall Games, who also did Terminator, publishing that. So I did a little case file for that, which was featured in the last Kickstarter. And then there's a couple other people reached out to me recently for RPG work, but I can't really say it yet, but I've agreed to 2 other smaller bits of gig work. So I love doing the RPG stuff. This really could be its own entire conversation, but I would just briefly say, I grew up on role-playing games. Being a game master, really does aid one's storytelling. It teaches you a lot of things. So when it came time to actually create, it's crazy that I was able to make a official Conan tabletop game.
Yeah.
How I wanted to, that blows my mind thinking about it. It's just, I've been so busy and moving through these projects. I don't know. Sometimes I don't slow down and think about it, but I've actually finished more work for that has yet to come out. We'll be doing another Kickstarter for that this year. It's about as specific as I can get about that, but the work on that is done.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't realize how many different properties you had gotten involved in. I saw, you're working in doing short fiction in Savage Sword of Conan, but
Mm.
To be able to make that game, like that must have been a huge, a huge success or a huge
Yeah, it was.
checklist off the bucket list.
Well, that's it. And in a lot of ways, I feel like I made the game I've always wanted to. Not like I'll never make another. But honestly, my aim isn't to do that. I don't have another game system trying to get out of, trying to get out of me. I will, however, continue to develop that one as we want, and have already done so again. People will learn more about that. But yeah, crazy, crazy that came about, and I'm really proud of it. I left it all on the ice, as we say. And it's again, a lot of people really love it, reach out, saying stupidly nice things. And man, sometimes the RPG people can be hard to please. And of course, there's some people who hate something that's that light, right? It's an elegant, pulp, fast playing game, intentionally so. But yeah, it reached its people, and feedback's been good.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Congratulations on that.
Thanks, man. I really want to just express how much how grateful I am for like guys like Fred Henry who run Monolith. It's his company, and he has just always put such faith in me. And I mean, it's paid off, I suppose, and that the games are successful. But yeah, I pinch myself at all of these opportunities and feel very privileged, and yeah, I don't know. It's a good feeling, man.
Yeah, definitely. I do. Whenever I talk with people about things like this, I want to stress that you've been doing this for years. You earned it.
Yeah,
So
I have. Yeah,
so hear that from another person. You earned these things.
Yeah, that is an important point, but it's also an important point for people who are like just starting out with stuff, right? Is that you've got to stick with it, and I mean, of course, it's not definitely going to pay off in all the ways that you might want, but I don't want to sound like a motivational speaker to junior high students or anything, but once you start setting goals, you will start achieving them.
Yes.
Right? I was not a goal setting person, and like when I was talking earlier, just actually setting weird little goals for myself because I knew it's this thing I always wanted to do, to write or create stuff. And lo and behold, you actually start accomplishing the things you set out to do. But you do it with a network and with friends and with allies and bros and whatever, man.
Yeah.
But it's really, that's the social element is really important. Because we are all human beings sharing the most human experience of creating stuff, enjoying stories, playing games, right? Being social creatures. So you gotta get that part right too.
Absolutely. I think I know I struggled with this when I was younger. Now I'm in my late 20s. I've been at this for a while, and things are starting to line up.
Late 20s, my God, young man.
Still in the beginning there. When I was like, I don't know, when I was 18 or 19, I had this idea where I wanted to be a game designer. I'm like, I'm going to do this. And then I just worked really hard at something for about 2 years, and nothing really panned out. But I compare that time to what I'm doing now. And a big difference is now I make a huge priority to lift other people up. I'm always trying to provide opportunities to others. And I spent a long time with the Arcanist focusing entirely on anybody, other people's writings before I even started thinking about mine again. But the point I'm trying to drive home with it, of course you got to interact with people. You have to support other people if you want to be supported. But we live in a culture where you just click a button and what you want gets beamed down from space.
Mm-hmm.
And that changes your psychology. It changes your expectations. So people watch these YouTube videos. They think like, oh, I can do that. And then they start learning a new skill. And they're like, I'm going to be a writer. And they don't realize that you're not going to really get anywhere immediately or even in the near future. You have to build the skills. I mean, when you're a new writer, there are errors you will make, there are pits you will fall into you will never see until years later.
Yeah.
When you're reading your old stories and going like, oh man, I was sending that to people.
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen overnight, and no amount of like, pestering big names in the community is going to give you the big break.
There's not a shortcut.
Yeah, there's no shortcut to
we get better at different rates. Like some people are, naturally gifted for sure. I've seen a few. I would say Logan, who I mentioned earlier, like he's put in the time now, and he's honed his craft too. But he just had this natural ability as soon as he started. But again, anyone who starts with a talent or a leg up, there's still a lot of crap you got to learn not to do. Right? Yeah. Sometimes that's the writing process is, yeah, I know what you're going for there, but you can't like head hop in this scene because it confuses us and it drags us away from the blah, blah, whatever, or not having your point of view nailed or all kinds of crap. There's all kinds of tiny little ones. And we were talking earlier about what I was doing when I was saying I was just trying not to suck. It was anytime I got feedback or even reviews from stuff that was published, I'd be like, oh, I know exactly what they mean about that. And some of those mistakes I was able to go back and scrub out for when I put these stories in to Walk on Worlds. Some I ditched entirely because it's like, ugh, that just is not holding up at all. We'll take that kernel and rewrite something later. But anyways, yeah, man, it really is about that journey. And I think that's why like AI, other than the sort of constant social media slop, which is really a good word for it because it just taints the entire experience of seeing art. You're just like, oh, that, whatever. But no one cares if it doesn't really come from anywhere. It's the craft itself that is fun. That's what makes the storyteller. Otherwise, your prompts don't matter. The computer is just making an amalgamation of what it thinks an audience wants based on. Anyways, what am I doing? Reciting why it sucks? I know. It's just it hurts my soul when I know people are using it for a shortcut to not do the work. The work is the fun part, man. It's like, I don't know if you do D&D or Warhammer miniatures or anything like that. It's like the idea you can pay someone to paint your set, and like that will be awesome. And I've even done it. I've even paid for some of that, but it's not the same as you putting that work in and painting that thing, just being immensely satisfied with what you've created.
Yeah. I was really into that a long time ago. It's been a while. Doesn't fit into my life anymore, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
If I think you either are a writer or you're painting miniatures, or you're cutting out video games or movies, or something's got to go.
Yeah, that is like I would love to write a video game. I got really into game writing during college, and I'm like, maybe I could. I'm lucky to where I have a direction in my day job now. I'm lucky too that it's not related to writing because it frees up my brain for my writing. But I wanted to be a game writer for a while, and then I'm like, that didn't pan out. Never found an opportunity. But maybe I can make my own game. And I'm like, I get to write books and publish other people's books at the same time, or I can make a game.
But what did you say? You're 29?
26.
26. My God. That's not me being condescending at all. It's just like the amount of awesome crap you got that you can do in the next like 2 decades is wild. Like I'm almost 2 decades ahead of you. And so I had accomplished almost nothing at that point. So I guess all I'm saying is if you really want to design a tabletop game or a video game, you're going to do it. And certain opportunities will present themselves in certain windows of time, just stay excited. And when you do get an opportunity, do your goddamn best to knock it out. And in the meantime, man, just keep doing your thing, because all of it is preparing you for, God's willing. We said gods keeping it fantasy related here. That we all have plenty of time to do that, but also keep it in your mind that maybe we don't, right? And you got to create some stuff, and clearly you're already doing that.
Yeah, I going that kind of jumps back to the idea of like instant gratification. I think about that a lot. I'm always fighting in my personal life to stay present. I'm in a really beautiful part of my life now. I went through a lot of turmoil to get to where I'm at, and people want, they want the result. They forget about the work. They forget about the process. But the process is the beautiful thing. This is the thing to savor. And so I'm looking forward to my 30s and owning a house one day, things like that. But, don't get distracted looking forward, because then before you know it, it's gone.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the smartest thing is to not look back, but to just be shaped by what happened, use it where you can. And my God, there's no better way. I don't know. There's no better way that I know of helping make things that happened in the past, giving them meaning, putting them to work, making them give you back some of the time it took, and just spinning it into your tales. It's so constructive, and it feels damn good.
That's what makes a great story. I mean, you said like some of these things come out, you don't even realize you're doing it. And there's a really interesting field of study all about analyzing the author rather than the text. But that is what I love out of fantasy, is because the secondary world gives you so much room to explore things that might be hard to in a more realistic medium.
Yeah, or to make them extreme too, right? To put a real edge on certain things, or to exaggerate, that kind of thing too.
Yeah, and that can exemplify a theme, and these things, like, they will come out, whatever's on your mind, and that's what makes it. I mean, that's what takes a silly story about a wizard getting trapped in goo somewhere up in space. It turns it into an examination on what it means to be trapped and how that applies to our life.
Exactly.
And even stories about wizards trapped in goo. I don't know if that's a real story. Maybe I should look into that.
It's not far from something that happens in To Walk on Worlds, actually.
Yeah, I think I had some subconscious memory happening there. I just read something where was that story where the wizards thought he was getting a leg up on Maxus.
Yeah. Exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that story has true horrific roots too, and I won't even go into what it is, but I had finished the draft of that story, which is bleak and dark, when I learned of the terminal diagnosis of my brother. I got a phone call right after writing it. I just won't ever forget it. I won't ever forget that. But again, I was working through stuff I was worried about, that we were going to learn.
Yeah.
And it all just sort of came out in that. And, that bastard Maxus, he can be he's kind of the vessel of showing he in some ways this is probably scary for people, but some of his beliefs or the way he handles shit is from a certain urge that I might have. I mean, he's a total bastard. I would never be like him, but I don't know. You can put in the things that you are afraid of and things that you are even similar to. And I mean, why? We don't have to explain. It doesn't have to be an allegory all the time, but all of this stuff represents parts of who we are as the authors. And my God, imagine taking out that part of the process or skipping it. You can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, the way to skip it is to just ask a bot to draft it for you, and then
that's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah, exactly. Here, can you really put a lot of my feelings into this with these words? These
side tangent about that. I was listening to a podcast where the guy had a guest on who writes openly with AI stuff, and I'm like, okay, I'll hear this guy out, because sometimes AI can be a really great tool, especially for small businesses. But
I would love to see it, or I hope it really just settles into that and somehow doesn't wreck the environment and it becomes a tool like other things. But that's not the people who are really gung ho about it. That's not what they're saying.
yeah, and this guy's talking about how he'll use Claude to different versions of Claude to draft out the story, and he's like, well, I can't use the big one because it'll just be really dramatic all the time, and I just want this scene to be a normal dialogue where the stakes of the world aren't happening. And I'm like, okay, then write it. If you want that conversation,
write it, dude.
You have
the power. You'll like it better. You'll have more fun.
Yeah. Instead of complaining that the AI doesn't write it the way you want it to. Oh my goodness. Talk about first world problems.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, that's its whole other conversation. And it's a big one and it's an interesting one. And it's like, there's a lot of throat gouging and people are angry and I get it. Like I just, anyways, we'll move past it.
One of these days there'll be a happy medium, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's get there. I'm sick of the growing pains in every aspect of our planet. Mm-hmm. There's just certain places we have to get, and we're just being assholes on the way, and it's upsetting.
The brand new author came up to you and asked you for, maybe what you would have wanted to know when you were starting out. What advice would you tell them, specifically kind of to get involved in the sword and sorcery heroic fantasy space?
If let's just say their skills were already pretty good, right? Like they knew how to write and they want to get into sword and sorcery, I would say networking is absolutely key. I would say there's sort of factions in sword and sorcery. I don't think we state them or anything like that, but it feels like it's like a cafeteria and there's some lunch tables, right? And certain people are sitting at some tables and certain people at some other tables. I would say that just play nice with one another and be mindful and welcoming. I mean, there's nothing worse than when someone wants to get into a thing and then we gatekeep or be shitty about it. I would say do your part in playing nice and being a team player and swords together and all that. Yeah, and try and do something to stand out a little. Flip some kind of script. Because if it's just Conan stuff, right, and like muscular prose and aping Robert E. Howard, which is fun stuff, I get it, I do it myself sometimes. But stand out with something, bring some angle to it, bring yourself to it. Don't write what you think sword and sorcery has to be, but draw out the parts that you like from the genre and from others and mash them together. I am Matt John. I write games and books. You can check out my Sword and Sorcery series, The Maxus Cycle. It is available on that giant river site, Amazon. Type in The Maxus Cycle or To Walk on Worlds or Within the Weeping Eye and you will find it. My gaming work can be found on the Monolith Edition website. PDFs are absolutely still available for Conan the Hyborian Age. Check out New Age Sword and Sorcery coming up. They're on Kickstarter right now. I've got a story in one of the newer issues. And follow me on Substack. I don't know. I think I'm Matt John Author on Substack. I've been doing a little blogging and it's fun and I will keep doing it. So yeah, tune in if you want to hear my rumblings about anything from video games to books to movies to, well, not the wide world of